Okay, well, I'm going to start right on time and respect everybody's time. Hello, you're here with Professor David Hollander at the Tisch Institute for Global Sport Chalk Talk. The topic, we have weekly Chalk Talks. The topic this week is a very broad and provocative, where are things now? And I think the best person to help us do that is a person whose business is to know where things are now. That's Scott Soshnick, who's the editor-in-chief of Sportico, the enfant terrible of sports business news. How old is Sportico?
3 months.
3 months, and it became my daily vitamin almost as soon as it launched, if not the moment it launched. And I think it has become most people in the industry's first read, long read, every day. And you've chosen, what is it, a 5 p.m.?
6 p.m.
Okay.
is our sort of what we call the lead, which is sort of the daily recap of the biggest 4, 5, 6, 7 stories of the day, what we think you should need to know or read. But yeah, I mean, a little bit of my background. I spent 27 years at Bloomberg covering sports business, but saw that there was a white space in the market for this type of news coverage. This is not, and I'm very careful, this is not a dig at anybody else that is out there doing sports business coverage. There are different ways to approach this. We just thought that no one was doing it this way, which is sort of what I had done at Bloomberg. Exclusive content, breaking news, a little more deeply reported. And we thought that the industry was ready for it. And if early returns are accurate, I was right that the dearth of this kind of news has led people to, like you, in short order, find us, commit to us, and make it a part of their daily routine. So that's good to hear.
Scott, you also, while we're talking about it, you've chosen some really skillful journalists. These are not automatons. I mean, these are people we know and have been around, and I think that matters.
Oh, it certainly matters. If you don't have the journalists who can do what I wanted to do, what good is the whole thing? For maybe people know the names or don't, but Eben Novy-Williams was my right-hand man at Bloomberg. Clearly, I had discussed what I was doing with him, and I'm not sure I would have done it unless he came with me. To be frank, that's how highly I think of Eben. I have been an admirer of Michael McCann's for decades at Sports Illustrated, and knowing where we were in the world and how important it would be to have someone who can crystallize those issues, those legal issues quickly, I reached out to Mike right away and said, I need you as part of this staff. Brendan Coffey covers finance. I need somebody who can look at a 10K and say, here's the news, and know where to look and how to find information. So Peter Schwartz on valuations. I hope everybody's gotten a chance to go and look at our NFL valuations that we did. Next up is the NBA, then MLB. Peter is so precise that I've had owners call me and say, do you mind, can I get a few minutes on the phone with Peter? He knows this stuff better than I know it.
Wow.
So that's what we were really going for. We're hoping in a pyramid model that we appeal to the top and everything trickles down in sort of an aspirational way.
Well, I've just, it's so impressive, and I learned so much. The reporting is in depth. It's not just top line. It's not just, hey, 5 minutes ago and we don't know much more. It's really, it's tremendous. And whatever that white space is, you nailed it, my friend. So thank you for helping all of us.
Much appreciated.
So by the way, I didn't know it was 27 years, man. I always thought you were you're always kind of affect youth to me. And maybe it's because, I want to share my screen. It's because.
If you're going to show the old picture.
I'm going to show you something. I play this particular Outside the Lines episode every year in my introduction to sports management.
I remember this. I remember whoever it was on the other side was taking digs at David Stern. I remember that.
Yes.
I really do. I remember this. And I'm like, that's not what I'm here for.
Well, you, in this moment, I just wanted to play this moment where you are the adult in the room. And I play this with such joy for all of my first year students because it's the wake-up call. Here goes. By the way, for those of you who don't know, a little context, this was an Outside the Lines that dealt with the trauma that the city of Seattle was going through when Oklahoma City kind of overnight took the Seattle Supersonics and moved them to Oklahoma City. And there was a journalist from Seattle, a community activist, a big fan who had started a big fan club, and Scott. And Scott jumps in here.
Team back to Seattle. It'll come at another city's expense, the one we've talked about, Sacramento, New Orleans, Charlotte, Memphis. What does that signify?
Well, it signifies what I'd like to say, and you
Oh.
I was fantastic.
You throw the cold water in the faces of the fans. That, guess what, folks? These are not public trusts. You better believe these are businesses. That should not shock anybody. An NBA team is no different than the local Walmart coming in. They're there to make a profit. They are vanity plays for these owners. And the minute they start to drain the funds, and if the core businesses of these guys aren't doing well, which they are not doing now during the financial crisis, they will look to get themselves out of that situation no matter what. They will dump to make their money. That is a sobering reality. This is a business. It is not just there for civic pride.
Steve.
That was just so straight up what everyone in that moment needed to hear.
I wish owners would stop with the I'm the caretaker of this trust. It's okay to level with the folks. Yes, I understand that there is but there is more of an emotional attachment between the customer and this particular entity in business than there is with the local hardware store. I get it, but that does not dismiss the notion of these teams as businesses. As, by the way, not only businesses as standalone, but these days as tent poles for other businesses. These are media plays. These are real estate plays. These are tech plays. They are not civic trusts. Please stop speaking about them with that language.
So that is it's the first wake-up call that I give my first year introduction to sports management students. It's like, guess what? This is what this is. And it's okay. Exactly. Like, drop the judgment on it. But so let me ask you, and I'm gonna, for those of you tuned in, I'm going to ask Scott just a few questions and then let you at home ask the questions to him while we have him. So that was 10 years ago. And yes, it was just kind of post the 2008 financial crisis.
Okay, can I jump in? You want to know the funny part? And I actually went up to some of I think it was Clay at the time, Clay Bennett, who was fronting the Oklahoma City group. He gave me his business card for some reason. I mean, I knew Clay, but it said Seattle Supersonics with the logo with an Oklahoma City address on it. And I said, Clay, can't you even pretend, couldn't you get a P.O. box for the 6 months that this team would remain in Seattle? And everybody all of a sudden is shocked that this Oklahoma City group that's handing out business cards with an Oklahoma City address is going to move the team. Come on.
That team was going to Oklahoma City the moment
they bought the team. Unless there is a restriction in the sale contract that says you cannot move this team, off they go.
So, it's not exactly the way it was in 2010. But 10 years later, we are in an economic difficulty, to say the least. Many things laid bare, many models laid bare by COVID. And, you know, the NBA did a fine job getting through that bubble. But I wonder, are we at a similar inflection point for owners with all this uncertainty over the next 2 to 3 years?
The answer is simple: yes. Especially those owners whose core businesses have been significantly impacted. If you're into casinos and hotels and restaurants, hello, Tillman Fertitta, yeah, you're darn right. You are starting to think, what may I need to do if the revenue does not come back? There's a reason why we're seeing things like Dial, like Sal Galatioto, like Arctos Partners. They're looking for newfound vehicles. MLS will allow private equity ownership all of a sudden because the system requires capital right now. I mean, you have a slew of limited partners in these teams that when it was a minimal investment, things were going well, there were no capital calls. It was great. Why not? Yes, I'm a part owner of insert team name here. That's great. All of a sudden, I'm getting calls for money. Things aren't so great. You know, they're trying to find ways to get out of these deals, but the liquidity is not there. So you're seeing entire paradigms being created to see how can they inject the capital into the system. It's going to be interesting to see how it all flushes out, because right now we don't know. Who you saw the Utah Jazz were sold today.
Right.
I mean, the Miller family had held that for a very long time. Was it affected by their current situation? I don't know. I have not spoken to them yet. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's a coincidence that all of a sudden we see this transaction. We see a significant LP stake in the San Antonio Spurs up for sale. We see the Minnesota Timberwolves, after multitude of flirtations with Glenn Taylor, it seems as if he's now ready to let go of this franchise. And frankly, the last two real auctions we've seen, David Tepper with the Carolina Panthers and the New York Mets, like those owners got bailed out by two super rich guys. But it wasn't an abundance of bidders. And you didn't get the sense of that frothiness that you want in an auction. And the leagues and the other owners are not, they're cognizant of the fact that we may need to do something here that expands the pool of buyers, or else we could start to see a suppression in our franchise values. That they do not want.
So, good segue into one of the kind of issues that I wanted to ask you about that I've seen cropping up in many of the reporting in Sportico, which is what's up with this proliferation of so-called SPACs, SPACs.
Special Purpose Acquisition Corp, blank check company, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, what and how's this all in the private equity? Like, what's happening here? Why is this new, and why should it be so important to us?
Well, one, it's not new.
Okay.
John Ledecky, who was one of the part owners of the New York Islanders, tried to buy, and I'm going back in my memory banks here, I believe it was the Florida Panthers like a decade ago via SPAC. And again, if memory serves, what I like is all the strange bedfellows that these partnerships bring together. I really enjoy that. But I believe it was John Ledecky, Hank Aaron, and Mario Cuomo. Like, nowhere else is that an answer to any trivia question, right? Other than name the members of the SPAC that tried to buy the Florida Panthers a decade ago. So, and I do not wish here to come on and and paint myself as a finance expert on SPACs. I wish my guy, Brendan Coffey, one of the guys I mentioned earlier, one of the things I need to do as a journalist is to know what I know and know what I don't know. And that is why I bring in Mike McCann and Brendan Coffey. But he has written extensively on the advantages of SPACs. And we've seen Redbird Capital get together with Billy Beane going after Liverpool or the Fenway Sports assets. And that's a way, and it's what we're talking about here. It's a way where John Henry can retain control of the asset, and yet by giving up 20% of it, he brings in tons of money in the public markets. Everybody would want to be a part of this. You're going to have Liverpool fans, Red Sox fans, own a piece of the team, right? That he can then go out, without using his own money, go out and help expand the empire, whether it be on players or infrastructure or whatever it may be. That's the thinking that's going on right now. How do I get access to capital? How do I free up capital that allows me to go and then put it back into my asset?
One other trend or issue that I'd love your take on is media measurement. Oh my goodness, terrible reports about the NBA finals down 51% and all this, Mark Cuban getting into it with whoever it was on.
Clay Travis.
Yeah. But then I also read numbers in the billions on digital and social video views. I see that the Lakers blew out the record for merchandise sales, 85%, which were done through mobile. So are we measuring with Gen Z and all that talk of their consumption habits, what's going to happen to the relationship between media, professional sports, and is it all about are we measuring the right things? Where's the value?
I think there's only one thing that's pertinent that you need to measure at the end of the day, and that's dollars in. And if I'm a league or a team owner, do I care if the dollars in, and by the way, the next round of NFL deals could be 2x to where they are now. So any reports of the demise of the NFL as a linear TV property are not only grossly exaggerated, they're flat out wrong. And that goes for baseball, which got a recent nice bump as well. The NHL is coming up on a new deal. What they're trying to figure out is, how do people today, and I can stereotype and say it's the younger folks. Thank you for saying that I portray younger, but I'm still a cable bundle guy, happy to watch a Law and Order rerun. My son is not so much, but I look at my son as a focus group of one. Does he know who Marshmello is? Was he on the Fortnite concert with a million other people? Yeah. I look now, we have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez draws 1 million viewers on Twitch playing Among Us. So the platforms are changing. The touch points are changing. My kid, who is a top flight hockey player, plays baseball in the spring, loves to go outside and throw the ball around, will not, I repeat, will not sit still for 3 hours and watch any game. I used to sit there with my dad and watch a game. It was great. No problem. 2.5, 3 hours. No problem. Quote, the 11-year-old, quote, "This is boring." But he will sit and play Madden for 3 hours for sure. He will play the video games for the NHL, whatever, 20. He'll play that with his friends. He will be on TikTok watching the highlights and the other. So the consumption habits are changing. No longer will the younger generation sit there and watch a game as you and I know the experience of watching a game. And that may be live, or sitting at home or on the move, because frankly, here's my TV, right? This is all I need. This is going back to David Stern in 1980, visiting Thimphu, Bhutan, going to an internet cafe and seeing a teenage boy looking at the Kobe Bryant page, and the light bulb went off over his head, saying this is about technology and scale and the flat world that Thomas Friedman wrote about. So it's, as long as people are engaging with the leagues, with the athletes themselves, on whatever platform it may be, great. And then as we see this sort of, forget broadcasting now, we're into narrowcasting. It's still, as George Bodenheimer used to say, or John Skipper, used to say, aggregate the eyeballs. It's my job to figure out how to monetize. So in sport, you're still reaching even if the numbers are coming down on the linear TV, it makes each one of those eyeballs that much more valuable. At a time when, I'm sure you've done this, you've gone and searched, let's say your kid needed, winter boots. How many weeks after you make that purchase are you still getting bombarded with an ad for winter boots? But the point is, pretty soon, it's all going to be individualized. The artificial intelligence will know that you prefer Skippy peanut butter, somebody else prefers Peter Pan, and it's been 2 weeks since you bought the jar, so I'm going to hit you with that ad because you probably need a new one. All that will increase the value of reaching each one of those viewers, even if the numbers overall are coming down.
And before I go to questions that are starting to pile up, should we be changing the thing that goes on the field to have more consumer interaction? The extreme of this is this thing called fan-controlled football, which I think is hilarious, and the consumer gets to put in the plays, almost like they're playing video game, but with
Dave, you hit it right on the head. It's not almost like they're playing video games. Yes, whether you talk to Zach Leonsis or Steve Mayer was part of our little shindig today, he said, we'll take everything mic'd up, we'll put glowing puck, whatever it may be. Absolutely. And the beauty of it is the technology will be there, as you see with the game casts now. Nobody has to watch just one presentation. No. If I enjoy my NHL hockey to be a la Xbox, I can choose that. I'll have that option. So the presentations will have varying degrees of that sort of gamification. But you will see more influence moving from esports / video games toward traditional sport than you will see from traditional sport going the other way. And last year, you'll remember the NFL did a deal with Fortnite where the characters in Fortnite could wear NFL skins. And it was a really telling moment to me when I just sat and I thought about it. And this is the mighty NFL, right? The most visible and valuable sports property in the United States, the #1 sports market in the world. And it struck me that in that deal, Fortnite had the leverage. The NFL needed Fortnite way more than Fortnite needed the NFL. And wouldn't you know, it worked because it took all of 30 minutes for my son to somehow find out about this and ask me, Dad, can I buy a 49ers skin? It's really cool. So they took my money. I didn't watch the game. I didn't go to MetLife Stadium, but still the NFL found a way to get me to open my wallet and suck some of the money out. Kudos to them.
Okay, I'm going to go to questions. Len DeLuca has some questions about Sportico, the publication. Will you do investigative work? Are rights holders kind of in your lens for that? And are you going to go into the panel business? Maybe that means conferences. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Let me take one. Are we willing to criticize? I mean, I think criticize is a little bit of a loaded word. We're willing to report on anything. When I first took over the NBA beat, it was like being summoned to, the mountaintop when David called and said, "Can you come to my office?" I'd been told that I had been christened. When you've been summoned by David, you'd been christened. And David, I'll never forget when he said, "I may yell at you. I may not like what you wrote, but if you're accurate and if you're fair, I will have no real problem with it, even though I may let off some steam." It is the basis upon everything Sportico will be built on is accuracy and fairness. So I don't know who's coming in, but so yeah, I mean, if you pick rights holders, whether it's Disney, ESPN, would we write a story that is less than flattering about Disney, ESPN? If it's accurate and it's fair, you're darn right we will. Sure, we're not going to shy away from it. As for like the panel business, we will be doing what we're calling live events, but when the world returns to normal, and we hope that's soon, we don't view it as 500 people in a ballroom. We think the people we're talking to, the potential partners we're talking to, seem to indicate that the value to them is in smaller curated events with real key decision makers in the industry. So I think you'll see us doing events, but not one a month and not one you'll be seeing broadcast everywhere, but they'll be taking place in smaller groups of, let's say, C-level executives.
Question from Dr. Lee Eagle. $3.1 billion revenue loss from MLB, for example. Could you provide context? Is it as bad as it might appear?
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows this was a bad year for baseball when some leagues require more fans for a higher percentage of their revenue. The context is that if you look at the indicators we have right now, you have the Mets sale, you had a stake sale of Jim Pallotta's stake sale in the Boston Celtics. By the way, it was an existing owner who bought his stake in Steve Pagliuca, so he certainly knows the business. And now you have the Utah Jazz at $1.66 billion. That indicates to me that the scarcity value of the franchises, at least for now, is more than enough for them to hold their long-term value. And we know what the media plays are going to be now. We talked about the NFL. We know the NHL has a new deal coming. Those media companies are not about to get miserly on sports. Second-tier sports, maybe. But the premier sports properties, I think most would view them as good investments, even now when they are losing a good amount of money. And that's without talking about tax write-offs, implications to other businesses, still viewed as good investments.
Here's a question. Anonymous writes, I work from a team that has a lot of fans. Our game sub 1,000, below 1,000. You see fan support back in a league that's niche to be.
I got to say, Dave, that broke up a lot. I couldn't really hear the question.
Sorry. The put this. I wonder if I can put it in the chat. Do you see that?
Where am I clicking here? Q&A?
It says, I work for.
Oh, here it is. I work for an MLS team
chat.
that's allowed fans. Our gates have been sub 1,000. Do you see fan support bouncing back in a league that's niche to begin with? I see no reason when people feel safe, and I would encourage everybody to go look at, again, I don't like just supposition. Like I don't want to say, well, yeah, it will or it won't. And this is something that's core to Sportico as well. If we make an assertion, we want to back it up with something, at least some sort of empirical data. I would encourage especially this person who wants to know this question, go to Kraft Analytics webpage. They have for the past several months been using publicly available data. That's flights taken, restaurant reservations, attendance at events, real data to show the confidence level in different markets of attending a sporting event. And you can see where it's high, where it's low. It's going to be market by market. Right now, if Alabama played Auburn in a college football game, my supposition based on the data that I see from Kraft Analytics is that they'd have 90,000 people in the stands. If you have a big sporting event in New York, my guess is, based on the data that I see, you would have far fewer fans. As confidence in the ability to fight the virus takes hold, you will see all those numbers start to rise in all the markets. So my guess is yes. I don't think anybody's turning off the sport, even if it's a niche sport, simply because of this.
Can you see that next question in the chat?
It's owned to either through podcast, digital, or linear video. Yes. Okay. Those of you who were familiar with my work at Bloomberg, Eben Novy-Williams and I had a sports business podcast there that at time of my departure had 100,000 monthly uniques. We will very soon recreate our Business of Sports podcast, but we're going to take it wider. We're going to take advantage of the expertise of our staff. So Mike McCann will contribute legal podcast. Brendan will do finance. Emily Karen will do women's sports. So it'll be more of a podcast network, but that will be up and running soon. We will have some video based on our YouTube channel, but not like a Yahoo Finance where it's streaming 24/7 or a Cheddar or what Bloomberg Quick Take is doing as an OTT. That's not what we'll be doing.
Scott, let me ask your assessment on new models in sports business.
Okay.
Athletes Unlimited, very interesting, kind of like fantasy sports for real with women's sports. Where's it going? Is this a good time to launch a new model? What's your observation?
Well, I think you know what my answer will be to, is this a good time to launch a new model? Because depending on who you speak with, 50% of the people who know me in the industry think I'm a moron. And not in general, but I mean for leaving a stable outlet like Bloomberg News for what is in essence, yes, backed by Penske Media and an umbrella company, but what is in essence a startup in the middle of a pandemic, trying to lure people. And then I've heard the other 50% say, boy, this guy has a set. And you know what? There is opportunity right now. When there was no sports on, no games were being played, and for the foreseeable future, do you not think that there's sort of a vacuum or an appetite for what's going on with these broadcast deals? What about the contracts? Are they being voided? Will they play? How much are they going to make? There's so much appetite for sports business right now. What better time to start something new, legitimize the brand, and really try and make it an everyday part of people's routine, like you did. So I would say it's a good time. There's an opportunity here for anyone. The question is, do you have the right plan? I'm not saying I do. I'm saying I think I do, but we'll find out.
Speaking of the right plan, I've been intrigued for a couple of years with overtime. And, they began with really user-generated content, people sending in really cool things.
If you don't have to pay for it, that's great, right? What a great model. People giving us
Right.
content for free.
Right. I don't think, and I don't think they think, that can go on forever or maybe even for much longer. Is there any insight you have into what their plan is to take all that interest they have and monetize it?
I don't have any specific knowledge of what Overtime's plan is, but I could certainly see them as an acquisition target because of the demographic they reach. I remember back in the day, like all the basketball players, you hang around in the locker rooms, and everybody wanted to talk to Lang Whitaker and Russ Bengtson because they were with Slam magazine. Like Slam was the cool thing. And it's still, to this day, I want to see somebody acquire Slam and revive that brand. It's a great brand. Overtime, it's sort of like, whether it's Bronny James or the whole age group, these high school, they're into Overtime. They wear the Overtime sweatshirts and hats. That's their platform that they grew up with. That's the place to be. I'm not so sure the well runneth dry as soon as you think it does. People want their face, their name on there. It's like, that's almost like saying, I think, even though it's being monetized, when will people stop sending submissions into like SportsCenter top 10? Like if you do some incredible wiffle ball thing in your backyard, you're going to send it in. You want to be on that platform. So I think the kids, and yeah, man, I'm an old man when you start using phrases like that, but those who grew up with Overtime have a real affinity for it and want to be part of that platform.
There's been a lot of talk now, reimagining, rethinking old institutions. Let's just focus on one, the NCAA, for a moment. I mean, where do they come out of this?
Oh, hold on. I got to get the date here so we're right. I had to go to the paper, right? I don't want to just speak off the cuff. What is the date? November 11th. Remember when I talked about everybody having kind of different disciplines at Sportico? November 11th, Mike McCann will be leading a name, image, and likeness discussion for Sportico. It's free, sign up whenever, I'll tweet it out so people can find the link. Now I wish I don't have the attendees, but I know Ed O'Bannon will be there, Jack Swarbrick, Jay Billis,
Wow.
at least one senator and one congressman. I don't remember exactly which. The creme de la creme of an NIL discussion. We're not just putting this on to have an event. We're putting this on to have the smartest people in the space on our platform, because it goes again to the overarching mentality or mission statement of Sportico is to be the platform of thought leaders. So I would reserve judgment on where is the NCAA going until I can get with those people and hear. Clearly, we have reached the tipping point of status quo. It's business as usual is no longer an option. And we've seen, much like the Milwaukee Bucks shocked the world when they said, we ain't playing. Sorry, we can't focus on basketball. George Floyd was killed and we had this is not happening. Basketball is not our number one. And then, President Obama got involved and he said, listen, you should play because that's your platform. But you have a tremendous opportunity now to make demands. And with Election Day coming up, have you seen all these sports venues that are used as polling places? Hello, right now I wonder if David Abrams is watching and saying he better mention Prudential Center. Prudential Center will be one of them. David, you can put it in the chat function that I did my job there. So, You remember a while back, there were a bunch of kids from Wisconsin. You know, they had bandied about the idea for whatever the change was that they wanted, like not playing a Final Four game. Good job by Dave. There we go. The players, the student athletes, they understand the collective power that they wield now. And now that they've gotten a taste of it and they've seen the Milwaukee Bucks on the professional level, somebody's going to say, you know what? You had Northwestern in the unionization effort. Someone's going to say, who cares about this game? We can do something bigger by not playing. And that's okay with us, because athletes and social activism now go hand in hand. And not to get, like, I'm not self-promoting, you know, Sportico here, but we had Martin Luther King III write an op-ed for us on athletes and activism and how he viewed what was happening as a continuation of his father's dream. So I would encourage people to go read that. But, you know, whether it's Kaepernick as a salesman, the message is resonating. And high school kids, college kids, they understand that there is something bigger out there than just playing a game. And I think that's the NCAA's biggest worry, that playing the Rose Bowl or playing Duke versus Kentucky in the Final Four is not the end game to many of these players anymore.
It's still the fastest specific result of a civil rights protest was the University of Missouri college football team, who said, we will not play on Saturday unless you remove the president. 72 hours, less than 72 hours later, they did.
Right.
David Abrams asks, and I think you somewhat answered, is this period in time a chance to reset on the money spent in collegiate sports by the big conferences, or does it go back to pre-COVID expenditures? If you want to just answer it your way.
Yeah, I'd like to hear David's take on this, because what I keep hearing whispers, you know, you hear breakaway, the major programs do their own thing. I'm wondering, you're hearing like banks are now lending to college institutions because of the shortfalls. I would have to guess that some of the private equity groups out there are salivating over the opportunity to, I don't know if privatize is the right word here, but I'll use it because I like it, to privatize big time college athletics. Like, let's just do away with the notion of the student athlete. It's fine, is a wink nod that and really see what kind of for-profit venture, what kind of engine and vehicle could we create if we took the top insert number 50 programs and say, we are just concerned with maximizing profits. We'll pay the players, we'll prepare them for a professional future. They can major in pro sports, nutrition, health, whatever, you know, all the things that go, money management, all the things that go along with it. Again, we're at a disruptive point here. And I'm not sure the appetite for the Rutgers, who at one point was the most subsidized school in the country, where student fees are going up and professors are getting phones yanked out of offices. I'm not sure the appetite is there. And the revolt may be, I don't know if we're on boil. Can we say we're on simmer from the academic side of the institution, saying we are no longer serving our mission statement. So, you know, maybe the Drake Group is going to have a few more friends out there in the coming year or two.
Maybe they will. Drake Group also, though, I believe, suggests a kind of limited antitrust exemption in order to control costs. But I wonder how far you think the disruption could go in this moment. For example, we watched the NBA bubble. It was pretty exciting. If you are a basketball fan, the performances were high level. They weren't traveling. They were rested. Theory. How much leverage do the best athletes have if like Athletes Unlimited, 20 of them, said, you know what we want to do? We want to have a 1 month tournament in a bubble. I mean, the best players. I mean, the guys you want to see all the time. Kawhi versus LeBron versus Giannis. Wouldn't they do better than they're doing now? Or at least be in control of things that, of course, they're never in control of? Would this cut out a lot of fat and overhead? And would the media companies not want it?
I mean, what would you have paid, or what would pay-per-view? We had the match between Phil and Tiger. I mean, that was something, right? I'd rather watch that than an 18-hole golf tournament, over 4 days. I really would. I think a lot of kids would rather watch it too. ESPN during the shutdown was toying around with the horse. Everybody shoot their own. Great. But what would you pay if I could take, and you can pick whatever 10 names you want, who are the 10 best players in the NBA, and let them play a one-on-one tournament? I would much rather, and I'm guessing a lot of younger viewers and even some of the oldies would really like to see that. And networks would really pay to broadcast it. Yeah, and Amazon and the others would love to jump in and, gee, how do we, maybe like we do with the shop they have now on some of the e-commerce sites that are fronted for Tottenham, maybe we give this, or LeBron, his own front page store on Amazon. The players themselves have, specifically LeBron, if he had walked out of the bubble, that season's over. I don't care if every other player says, no, we want to stay. We take a vote, and it was 400-1. If LeBron says, I'm not playing, how much air goes out of that NBA balloon? So LeBron's pretty with it, and his team has done a remarkable job at leveraging his fame. So I think these guys are really starting to understand the leverage that they have after years of being told it's a star-driven league. Nobody hid from that. It was never, like, if I go back to it wasn't like, oh, the Celtics are playing the Sixers today. It was Larry Bird and the Celtics, Dr. J and the Sixers. It was always fronted by somebody. Malone and the Jazz,
Right.
Magic and the Lakers.
Right.
It's always been that way. And it's even in the most team of team sports still being pushed forward by superstars.
A culture often foretells the future. I don't know if you're a fan of the movie High Flying Bird, but when you put all what you're saying in context of change, when 80% of the players are Black, and 95% of the owners are white, and the rubber starts to hit the road at some point, and I think pressure is starting to show up in funny places, not funny places, but places like when the Milwaukee Bucks say we're not playing. And there's more of a dialogue than there is a kind of hierarchical exercise.
Yeah, and I mean, I had conversations with Michelle Roberts before she even took the job. And I can tell you, Michelle is not fond of any prospective business partner of the NBPA that would send an entourage of 2, 3, 4, 9 people into her office of white guys. She wants to see diversity in their business partners. She wants to see Black-owned businesses being given opportunity by the teams, by the league, and the players have downloaded that message. It's getting through. Yeah, absolutely. That these players want to see change, and they not only know how to do it now, they have maps. They're they see it as a higher calling, and that's black and white.
Right.
Now, there are allies, black, white. I said players, not black players, but players see it as a higher calling and as a responsibility of having this platform.
So last question for you to kind of wrap up the whole kind of ecosystem, because what you're talking about is a real, these are big issues of changing the relationships, the economic web of relationships. And, on an existential level or not, there's this like $15 billion business, at least that's the money they can count, in youth sport. And, it's being kind of like decimated at the moment, but it's possible that really, even though there was a lot of money in it, there weren't that many kids actually playing, because it was really the kids that could afford it and the travel teams. And that, I guess what I want to know is, related to that, if there is going to be change, there is going to be a new vision for the business of sports, or any kind of new vision, who's in charge? Who has the strongest leadership platform? Is it Nike? Is it media? Is it private equity? I mean, the athletes. Who can really kind of take the first big step, and everybody will be like, okay, we've got to go with them?
What I've seen in sport is that the true power comes when the stakeholders unite for a purpose. And I don't see any reason why we would have to part and parcel and pick just one, because one can certainly do part. I mean, you've seen lots of teams say, oh, we're hiring a diversity and inclusion officer, we're donating X. That's great. That's ownership. But that's the team. But the team then needs the most visible part of the franchise, the players. And while, yes, LeBron by himself is a media platform and could reach the world with a tweet, that's not true of 450 players. They need the platform of the game and the court and that NBA logo. And that is beamed around the world, whether it's Tencent or whether it's Turner. So collectively, the stakeholders can drive this change. I wouldn't put it just on one particular group, because there's only so much that one entity can accomplish.
Headline for tomorrow. Just give us one. Give us one headline for tomorrow.
My headline for tomorrow,
or tonight, in 10 minutes.
Boy, I wish I knew what my guys were working on. I would say, I think we have something coming, and I hope no reporters are on this. I would say the transactional frequency coming based on the election. Like, a lot of these things are happening because deals want to be closed prior to the calendar flip. I think there are a bunch of people who perhaps see a capital gains tax that will be significantly higher if that deal closing statement says 2021 and not 2020. And we're in what? We're October, so I think we're in for a busy, wink, wink, November, December in terms of some of these transactions.
That's so smart. That's so good. The power guys like Dave Abrams are on like 7 phones right now.
Don't tell anybody. I didn't say that. I know this is being recorded. It's not to be rebroadcast until January 1.
That was hot. That was hot stuff. Scott Soshnick, thank you always for being who you've been since I've come across you. But now, such a presence every day for all of us who are trying to learn, trying to teach others, and really trying to make sense of, what every hour seems like just, really big, impactful changes.
I tell people, if I don't pick up my phone, and well, my standard was I'm either in the shower, and by the way, this now goes near the shower, so I look at the number and know if I need to pick it up, or I was in the subway. So I'm not in the subway now, so if I don't pick up, it's because it's unbelievable. I never know who is calling and what they're about to say, right? You just don't know. Like, today I get a phone call, really out of the blue. Of course I stay on top of things, but I get a phone call out of the blue. The Utah Jazz are being sold. Boom, jump on it. I was not planning that story today, but it arrived. Great. So I just never know. And that's what keeps this so exciting. I just have no idea what's coming next.
Definitely a good time to start a new sports business media property.
That's right. Especially if and when we ever ask for subscribers, that I have something here. If and when we may go to such a model that perhaps people will see value in what we're doing.
Ooh, the ecosystem just changed again. Scott, thank you. You're the best. You really are. Thank you, everybody, for being here today on the weekly Chalk Talk at the Tisch Institute for Global Sport. We bring big leaders, and we just broke news like 7 times. Real big news in this conversation. So I will stop the recording and then put it in a bottle and send it to across the Atlantic. Thank you, Scott. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.